Right. Hello, Mo, and welcome to the Asian Comms Network live stream. Now, Mo, how is your day today so far?
It's been good. I'm quite disappointed with the weather change, but apart from that, I've been having a good day. How about you?
Good, not bad, not bad. It's always a bit funny coming back after summer. It just feels like a bit of a slog, and there's a few months left. Now, I wanted to start off, Mo, by just wanting to know a little bit about you. Can you let us, the audience, know who you are and what you do, and how did you hear
Yeah.
about the Asian Comms Network?
Yes, so I'm Mo Kanjilal and I'm the founder and director of Edge of Difference, which is a diversity and inclusion company working with employers on their inclusion work and training and how they communicate. And my route into it was quite a strange one. I'll perhaps talk about that later, but I studied English at university, which is not usual in the Asian community, but that's what I did. Didn't really know what I wanted to do and started working in marketing initially, and that happened to be in a tech company. So I then had a long career in technology, working in marketing, sales, and communications, and then started working in diversity and inclusion in the lockdown. 2020 lockdown was when I started doing that, and it's kind of grown from there. And I've gone on then to do a TEDx talk and co-author a book, and lots of things have happened since then. And how I came to the Asian Communications Network is actually through Advita. So her books published through the same publisher. And
Is it listed, Vita?
Is it? Yeah, there she is. Hey,
There you
hello.
are. Hi, Vita. Okay.
Yeah, so somehow we were connected, I think probably through social media. And then her book was through the same publisher, and we kind of got to know each other. And then once this launched, I was like, this looks amazing. And so that's how I came to it.
Great. And we all love Advita. Now, I wanted to understand, so you studied English Lit and philosophy at university, your master's. How did you manage to get your parents to allow you to deviate from accounting?
Okay, so without wishing to stereotype, in most Asian families, you've got to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or an engineer. Like, those are the things people do. My family are loads of medics, lots of doctors and nurses. I was the one that wanted to do something different. I had one cousin who'd kind of paved the way for me a little bit by doing something different. She studied politics and she's older than me. And I wasn't scientifically minded. It wasn't what I was interested in. I loved English, and that's what I wanted to study. So it was interesting. There were lots of comments to my parents of like, that was our daughter, we wouldn't let her study that. And my parents were a bit like, well, we don't have much control over it. So it was a different choice to make, but so pleased I did. And I hope now, though, it's different for younger people now, and they can.
Well, I hope so too. But I've got a 17-year-old daughter, and she's like, Mum, I want to go into fashion. And I was like, it's like, well, I don't know. But then I thought, no, cut the generational trauma and, let her do and pursue. So yeah, let's hope. Now, I wanted to start off with your first ever job. Because, summer's a funny time. People get their A-levels, people get this, their university, and they start going into the world of work. Tell us a little bit about your first job, and if you could turn back the clock, what would you have told yourself as you were walking into your first day?
Yeah, so my first proper job, I finished my degree and then did the master's degree. Then I'm like, oh no, I need to earn some money now. What am I going to do? And I kind of fell into, perhaps I'll do marketing. So I applied for tons of marketing jobs everywhere I could find. And I happened to get this one at a very small company. And I thought, oh, they seem really nice. I'll go for that job. And it happened to be a tech company. I didn't have a technology background at all. I had my literature degree. And so I remember feeling really nervous going into the first day in the office. I hadn't worked in an office like that before. It was all just quite like, oh God, what's this going to be like? And I walked into a very small company, but a very tech company. And honestly, on that, I really remember the first day. I didn't know what I was doing with emails. I think they said to me to print something out, and I was like, oh God, how do I do that? And I remember having to like really swat up on how you use different tech tools and what you actually do, because what happens in education is you learn a lot of skills in education, but not necessarily those kind of practical office skills. That's the bit that's missing. So I think I often say this I do mentoring for a charity, and I often say that to the girls I mentor. like get some of those skills, learn how to use, Excel and Word and things like that.
And you spent a lot of your early stage in sales. How did you sort of do you think that really helps you in terms of then going into more the sort of the marketing space?
So I'd love to say my career was really planned out, but it wasn't. So I started working in marketing at this tech company. There was somebody working on international sales, and he said, really could do with some help with sales to the US. Do you fancy giving it a go, like getting on the phone and talking to people? And I thought, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I found actually that's what I loved. I loved sales because I like talking to people and getting to know people. And sales is a lot about like listening to what people are saying. And I absolutely loved it. So that's how I got into sales, very by accident. And then that meant that I had the career of traveling the world. So I stayed at that company for quite a while I was their only international salesperson at that time. And I had a free reign to do whatever I wanted and go wherever I wanted to grow the sales. And then that led to me having those kinds of roles in tech corporations because I had the experience then in international sales. And it meant I did all of that kind of travel of flying business class and gold Hilton card and all the things that I thought I wanted to do.
And Mo, a lot of people are terrified of public speaking. And I remember the first time I did it, I think I was a teenager in front of the whole school, and I literally couldn't even squeak. I was paralyzed with fear of public speaking. Now, you've spoken at TEDx, the one in Brighton, and TED is like the ultimate platform of like public speaking, and they're just so well known. Did they teach you, did they prepare you? Because TED is such an amazing platform for speakers, and they've got a kind of like a formula. And did you have nerves? And what advice do you give to people tuning in about public speaking, how to prepare themselves, what you've learned? Because you've kind of, you've platformed at, the highest sort of platform, which is TED for speaking. So what can you teach us about that experience?
So I love public speaking, and if you ever get the chance to do a TEDx talk, I really recommend it. I absolutely loved it. When I was young, I was quite shy, and I think it came from feeling really different to everyone else and just feeling really awkward. I was quite kind of withdrawn. And so my mum said when I was quite young, I think maybe like around the age of sort of 10, 11, 12, that sort of age, I know, we should send her to drama classes. That would be good. And it completely, like, that's where I came out of my shell, and I absolutely loved it. So I learned a lot of techniques doing that. I did drama for years. I was involved in drama at university, like something I always did. And then in the sales career, you have to do a lot of standing up and presenting. So I've done lots of that in corporate careers and like had training on it and like lots of practice at that kind of thing. So it is something I enjoy doing, but also comes quite naturally to me. So the TED experience, I mean, it was amazing. So with the TED talk, you have to have an idea what essentially what they coach you on is what's your gift to the audience. So what are you trying to open people's minds to? It's not about selling yourself at all or about selling your company, or it's nothing like that at all. It's like, what's the big idea and what gift are you going to leave the audience with? And the way they coach you is whatever idea you have, it's like, okay, what's the story to build into that? Because it's all about building your stories into it. So it's a really like powerful way of speaking. And I absolutely loved it.
You chose a topic, not particularly lightweight one. You chose understanding the truth, value, and power in our differences. And I know this, this was a year and a half ago. Can you talk us a little bit, just like top line, so we can have our own mini TED experience with you on the spot?
So that idea I'd had in my mind for quite a long time. Like if I ever got the opportunity to do a TED talk, I knew that's what I wanted to do it on, because because of my experiences growing up. So I grew up in East Anglia, where everyone was white and I was different. So I was always different to everybody. And then my cousins all lived in London, but I wasn't part of that Indian community. So I was different there. And then you go to India and you're different there, and all your cousins laugh at your accent and things like that. So I've always kind of had that feeling of feeling different. And actually, what I learned through the drama and doing those things is it's better to be different. Who wants to be the same as everyone else? You have to really like think about what your differences are and what that brings, what insights that brings. So that's what the talk was around. But what I did was through the talk was kind of talked about my own differences, but also went through ideas in society where people are pushed into being the same all the time. So who do we see as leaders? Well, it's always the same kind of people that are portrayed as leaders. What kinds of things do we read? What TV programs do we watch? What's pushed on us? And then I talked about one of my favorite bits actually was a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, because we see his quotes everywhere. On every website, it's got a quote, every inspirational speaker. And I had been to an event at this stately home in West Sussex. And it was one of those homes where you look at it and you go, where was their wealth built? What was it built on? Because it's probably from the British Empire. And they had a quote on the wall from Mahatma Gandhi, and it was about it's easy to stand in a crowd, but it takes courage to stand alone. And when he said that, he wasn't saying that to loads of British people who were stripping India of its wealth. He was saying that to the people of India, to say to them, like, stand up, we need to do something about this. And so it's an example of where the difference of what he was saying has been lost. And it's like an example of what happens. And you see that happening all the time with his words. Hang on, you're on mute.
It's really interesting because it's just about context. And now I wanted to just check, if people want to listen to your TED Talk, is it online? They can just go onto YouTube and just type in your name and TEDx and they'll find it.
It's all there, and I'll add it to the link for the LinkedIn post here.
Oh, actually, Advita, one step ahead, as always. So now, you mentioned earlier that you wrote a book, and a lot of us, including myself, it's been on my to-do list for like 15 years, and every year it just moves to my next year's goals. How do you what advice do you give to people like myself and other people tuning in who have been wanting to write a book, but they just can't get around to doing it? And of course, like, our excuse is, oh, we're too busy. But actually, I'm not so busy to binge watch Love Island, or go for endless walks in the park with my dog. So it's kind of like this motivation, procrastination, getting the headspace when you're this busy comms person. And because you've got to be quite still to distill your thoughts. And I know Advita's been going on a journey this year with her book as well, and she's incredibly disciplined. And I'm excited about her book on confidence. But what tips can you give to us who really want to go down the book route but are just struggling?
So writing a book is one of those things that I always wanted to do as a child. So if anyone had asked me when I was a girl, what did I want to do? I'd always say things like, I want to be a writer. But that's not something that's like encouraged as your career path. But it's one of those things that was always in my mind, but you don't know how to make it happen. I think that's the thing. So when I started working in diversity and inclusion, me and my previous business partner had said we put it as a goal, we want to write a book, but then how do you make that happen? And then we were actually approached by the publisher. So that we were very lucky that we got approached by them. And then that's how we actually got the publishing deal. And then the actual writing of it is you just have to be really disciplined, as I know Advita is. You have to set aside time where you're not on social media and actually just sit and do the writing. Because I've also been writing a novel for about 6 years, and I'm about halfway through. And with that, I know what I need to do. I need to take myself away somewhere and just sit down and get on with it, because I really want to finish it. And then I've always got ideas for writing. I've got another non-fiction book idea as well, but it's just like, how do you actually make yourself do it in the busyness of the day? And there are lots of writing courses that say things like you've got to write a bit every day, but I'm not that kind of writer. So I actually find those kind of writing courses don't work for me. For me, it's when the mood takes me and I need a chunk of time to sit and write.
Yeah. Oh, that would be lovely. I always sort of think I just want to go with my dog to some lodge in the woods and just write and turn my phone off, but don't see that happening anytime soon. But with your book, The Inclusion Journey, it was launched last year. Is that correct? Around about this time. Right. And then 6 months later, you had this big backlash on DI coming over, from our friends across the Atlantic. And of course, we were so worried here in the UK, what's going to happen to our sort of DEI movement? Is it going to run out of steam? How did you feel when you put all that time and energy into writing the book, and then 6 months down the line, it was almost as if there was like a counter narrative against it? Like, I would just love to know, from your perspective, what your thoughts were about the backlash that seemed very strong. It's kind of slightly dissipated in our world, I think, in the UK, or just, I mean, I'm not in that world as much as you are, but yeah, could you just talk to us about that, because that is, it's like quite distant, it's not that so distant memory. It's just a few months back.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, we knew it was coming with Trump. I wasn't actually that surprised that he
Okay.
was elected. I could kind of see it happening. And yeah,
Did you also see all the corporates kind of just, dismantling as quick? Because I think one thing was everyone kind of did know what was coming in terms of political rhetoric, but not quite how the corporates reacted. And the sort of corporates that did all of a sudden start scrubbing their website of sort of, diversity, and how diversity all of a sudden became a dirty word. It was extraordinary how a word can just flip. That's why I wanted to sort of lean in with you.
Yeah, so it was interesting because those that were quick to cancel, you could see they didn't actually mean it in the first place. Some of them were companies that were, I guess, were under pressure because of government contracts and things like that. I think the interesting thing was the impact it had here, where we saw some companies do the same thing and cancel the work, and it shows you that they didn't really back it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered during that time what it meant for employees in those organizations, how that felt for people to be just cancelling the work like that. Where we are now is, I actually think it's meant that people understand what the work is much more. And those that understand it are sort of doubling down on the work and really want to do this kind of work and show they're not that kind of company. And there's been because it covers so many things, doesn't it? Diversity. It's so many different areas of how people live and work. And I think actually it's highlighted more what we do, what the work is, and shown us, and I think in terms of employees, people are going to look at the companies that still prioritize this for their next job. Why would you stay in a company that essentially says they don't care about their people and how you work, because they're going to cancel the work like that? So I think it's been one of those things that has been challenging for a lot of people. For me, it's actually meant continued work and even more work from those that really prioritize this.
And if you're not writing books and then novels and speaking on TED as well as your day job, I also was sort of researching you before this, for our conversation, and you served as a trustee at the Clock Tower Sanctuary. I haven't come across them before, and they are focused on equality, diversity, and inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a trustee? What did you learn? Is it something that is useful for other people to do? Because everyone is really busy, so they've got to really critically think. It may look really nice on LinkedIn to be a trustee, but what value does it give, considering that it often is unpaid if you're a trustee for a charitable organization, and it does take time away, and there's also risk attached to being a trustee. So we'd love to hear from you on that.
So I did not know much about being a trustee and didn't think it was for people like me anyway. I just hadn't thought that I could ever be a trustee. I had a different image of who trustees are. There's a community kind of membership organisation for charities in Brighton where I live, and one of the managers there said to me, this was during 2020, and she said to me, have you ever thought about being a trustee? And I was like, no, I didn't think it's for me. And she was like, right now, because this was in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, she was like, right now, all of the charities are looking at their boards and saying, we need to do something about this. And so any charity would be interested in you. Like, do you want to find out more about it? So there was an online kind of learning kind of training session about what it is to be a trustee. So I went to that and I was like, oh, maybe I could actually do this. So then that's how it happened. And then that organization helped me find a charity that I was interested in. So for me, all the charity work I do is around young people. And so the Clock Tower Sanctuary are a charity. They're a charity based in Brighton for young people experiencing homelessness. And it's to help them turn their lives around. There are other charities around the country that do similar things. So there's New Horizon in London and other kind of national charities that are all about helping young people to get themselves, turn their lives around, find a home. And for me, that felt like something I was really passionate about, because it's a fundamental right to have a home to live in, and to not have that is something you see on the streets every day. You see people. So that's how I got involved. And then I've been a trustee there now since 2021. It's really rewarding. It is unpaid, it's voluntary work, but how much time you give is up to you. So you're committed to the board meetings, which are once a quarter, and then it's up to you how much you get involved. So I'm involved in the Personnel and Equalities Committee. We all do a stint of like volunteering in the kitchen and making lunch, which is great fun. So it's kind of up to you then as to what you want to get involved in. I really recommend it. Boards really need people to join, because what happens is who has time to do those things becomes the same types of people, and actually charities really need different types of people joining their boards.
Now, Edge of Difference, you set it up 3 months ago. Has it been daunting to set up a new business? You know, do you end up having to have lots of kind of like wearing lots of different hats? So you've got to be a bit of an accountant, a bit of a, social media expert, a bit of a website copy person, as well as business development and, and all the sort of functions that people take for granted when they're working in organizations. And all of a sudden, when they step out of an organization and set up their own, all of a sudden they have to wear all these hats. How's that been for you for the 3 months?
Yeah. So I'd run a business before for the last 5 years. So I have done this before. And so I knew like how to get things set up. And I'm also one of those people that always wears lots of hats. So when I worked in corporate, I had loads of different projects I was involved in all the time. And I've just recreated that, but not in a corporate setting. So I always have lots of things on the go. And it's gone really well so far. There's something about relaunching and telling people what you do that attracts people towards you. So I've had more inquiries in the last couple of months than I've had for a long time. A lot of it from like LinkedIn contacts, people that knew me already, but the relaunch and restating what I do and being clear about it has really resulted in a lot of interest. So it's been really good. And yeah, there's still all the tasks you have to do. 1 minute you're dealing with invoicing and the next minute you're dealing with a website problem. That's just the reality of it, but it's the freedom that you get that you don't have in those corporate roles that I love.
And what kind of projects are people coming to you with? What are you seeing in the market, the interest?
Yeah, so a lot of it is around how to engage employees through our training. So there's a lot of maybe kind of more of the processy work has been done on diversity and inclusion, and there could be employee surveys set up, for example, but it's what you do next. It's the actions and really engaging people. So we're doing lots of training programs where our training is all very kind of active participatory learning, but we really get to know people and help them get employee groups set up and really drive change. There's a lot of that kind of work going on. And I would say like a really renewed interest in it as well from lots of different kinds of companies.
And, we've been seeing up and down the country sort of St. George's flags and, and British flags sort of coming on. And it's kind of opened up this whole national debate about inclusion, actually, where some people say, well, it's a flag and we should, all rally around it and be proud together. Others say, well, actually, it makes me feel a bit unsafe. And it sort of opens up all these debates where countries like the US, they really, they're very flag waving people, other countries less so. And why is the UK has always been a little bit shy about sort of flag waving, and it's not quite, the done thing here. Do you look at sort of our country as a whole and think actually all the work on DI that amazing people like yourself and Vita have been championing, do you sort of feel that we're perhaps regressing a little bit? There's something about the social fabric that's not as strong as we thought it was. I mean, I know obviously last summer we saw some very disturbing scenes on the streets where ethnic minorities were being attacked, and we also saw and we've seen a lot of animosity towards migrants. But what do you have to say about inclusion on a national level?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was away actually the last few weeks on holiday, and I came back and I'd seen it on the news that this had been happening. I came back and actually where I live, like in my town, there were flags. I went to visit my mum and as I drove down the road, and it was quite shocking actually to see that somehow when you read something on the news, it's a story, but when it's right near you, it impacts you differently. And I think it shows the divides in society that have been there they've been there for a long time. It's not a new thing. If we go back to 2016 and the Brexit vote, again, those divides were already there, but that emboldened people and it brought it all out into the open. And that's what we're seeing now. So last summer was a similar thing where it all just came out into the open. It's whipped up by the media. Who gets more media coverage? What stories are covered? And that's what's happening again now. Like, what's the coverage? What response are we seeing from politicians? It does show us that there are such massive divides in society that sometimes it's interesting because there's the kind of out and out abuse, shouting at people, flag, that kind of thing. Then there's the more covert types of racism that you experience that a lot of us will be familiar with, where it's comments, it's behavior, it's things like that shows you that those things people just become more emboldened by this kind of action. And those things that are somehow hidden become more out into the open. So we've been seeing it in some of the training sessions we do with companies, which usually people are more sort of, it's unusual for people to be really overt about what they really think, but that's happening more at the moment.
That's really interesting. What can we do on an individual level to help in the communities that we show up in?
So I think we have to acknowledge that loads of people are feeling scared, and that's the reality. I don't know about you, but all my kind of WhatsApp groups have been loads of people checking in on each other and checking if people are doing okay and showing support. And I think that's really important to do. So if you feel like there's people you haven't checked in on, I think it's good to do that to make sure people are okay and feeling safe, because it's a worrying time. My parents just always talked about when they first came to England, and they'd be spat at in the street and bricks thrown through the window. To think that we're still in that place now is pretty terrifying. So I think that's an important thing, is like understanding how people are doing, supporting people, sort of community response. And then we need people to be allies. That's the biggest thing we need. We need people to step up. And so I've certainly been having conversations with friends who've said, what can I do to kind of help with what things they can do? Because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're getting involved in something that could be violent with people. So it's like, what can you do?
Yeah, really, really sound advice, Mo. And for our community, if they have any questions about the work that you do, perhaps they work in companies that are looking for support, best way to reach out to you, is it your LinkedIn or any other?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn, I'm quite easy to find, Mo Kanjilal. The company is edgeofdifference.com, so you can find me through that too. But usually if you search for my name, I'm the only person with that name. So it's quite easy to find me.
Great. And they can find your TED on YouTube.
Yeah.
They can find your book on Amazon. So there's lots of opportunities for us all to learn about your incredible work. Just want to give a shout out to those who've been messaging. So just a hello to Nazia, who's from saying hello from a rainy Reading. And we've also got, obviously, Vita's been here. Our lovely Shinil Patel, who is just doing such a great job herding cats with all of us and making sure that she wraps a big digital arm around all of us. Big hello to Vishni saying hi, Leva as well. And then we also have Vishni made a lovely comment over here about being a trustee is really rewarding, and we need to get diversity on boards. Very wise. We have come to the end of our session. Just a thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening, and please do reach out to our wonderful Mo. We are all here to support each other. So thank you to Mo, and I will end the stream now.
Bye.